students, this is 12th class biology chapter 11 biotechnology principles and processes, and this is lecture number 1 of this chapter. So today in this chapter we will discuss about the principles of biotechnology and tools of recombinant DNA technology. So let's start with basic definition of biotechnology. What is biotechnology? So biotechnology is the technique of using living organisms or their enzymes. So here living organisms can be used, or the enzymes which are present in living organisms can be used for products and processes which are useful to human. Right? So what is biotechnology? Is the technique of using any living organism or their enzyme for human welfare, basically. Okay, for making the products for human welfare or for any other process that is useful for human. What is biotechnology according to European Federation of Biotechnology? That is EFB. So EFB defines biotechnology as the integration of natural science and organisms. So natural science that is occurring all around us, like making curd from milk. Okay, so organisms which are involved with that natural science, or only a cell of any organism or any other part. Okay, so use of all these, and also molecular analogues, the modified organisms. Okay, so modified organisms or the natural organisms and the natural science, use of all these for making the products and other services for human welfare. This is biotechnology according to European Federation of Biotechnology. These are the processes with which biotechnology deals. If we consider the previous definition of biotechnology, that it is the technique of using live organism and enzymes to produce the products for human welfare, then even making of curd, making of bread and wine, these are a type of biotechnology, right? So according to that definition, microbe mediated processes like making curd, bread, wine, these are a type of biotechnology. And also you have studied about test tube baby program, that is called in vitro fertilization. That is also a kind of biotechnology according to the definition. But in a restricted sense, we use only genetically modified organisms to achieve the same. Okay, we refer to such of those processes which use genetically modified organisms for producing something good for human welfare. So that is like synthesis and using of a gene. Okay, so here this is biotechnology. If we are synthesizing or using any gene, that is biotechnology. Also preparation of DNA vaccine is a part of biotechnology. Then correcting of a defective gene, okay, that is biotechnology according to the definition of EFB. Now let's understand principles behind biotechnology. So these are core techniques which are used in modern biotechnology: genetic engineering and bioprocess engineering. These two techniques are used in biotechnology. Genetic engineering is the technique in which genetic material, that is DNA and RNA, is chemically altered. Means its chemical sequence is changed and introduced into host organism to change the phenotype. So if altered genetic material will be introduced in any organism, obviously the phenotype of the organism will be changed, right? So here the organism in which this altered DNA is introduced, that is called host organism. So this is genetic engineering. Then bioprocess engineering. Bioprocess engineering is maintenance of sterile ambience in chemical engineering processes for growing desired microbe. So it is sterile ambience, means microbe free condition. Okay, for growing desired microbe. if we are growing any microbe and there will be any contamination, then obviously the desired microbe will not be grown. That's why it is very important to maintain the microbe free condition, to maintain the sterile conditions while doing these processes. Okay, so that we can get desired microbe or any eukaryotic cell in large quantities for the manufacture of antibiotics. For the production of antibiotics, vaccines, or for some other enzyme, there is requirement of growth of some eukaryotic cell or some microbe, some bacteria can be grown, so that we can obtain our desired vaccine or antibiotic from those, right? And for growing those microbe or any other eukaryotic cell for the production of antibiotics and vaccine, it is very important to maintain the sterile conditions. Now, these are basic steps in genetically modifying an organism. That how genetic engineering, that we are saying, in genetic engineering, what we are doing, we are genetically modifying any organism, right? So these are basic steps for modifying an organism genetically, to modify its genetic material or DNA. So first of all, identification of DNA with the desirable genes. Okay, this DNA source can be any organism. So DNA from any organism is identified having desirable genes, means our the genes which we want to introduce in any other organism, or having the desirable characteristic, means which is responsible for the protein that we want. So that will be called the desirable genes. Okay, then second, introduction of the identified DNA into the host. So that desirable DNA or desirable gene, you can say, that will be introduced into the host in any other organism, you can see. So that organism will be called host. Third is maintenance of introduced DNA in the host and transfer of DNA to its progeny. So the DNA that is introduced in that host, so it is very important to maintain that DNA in that host. Okay, and transfer of the DNA to its progeny also. If this DNA will be maintained in that host, only then it will multiply, it will replicate with the host DNA and will be transferred to its progeny, means to the host progeny, right? And that progeny we will get to take up the vaccines or antibiotics. Okay, so let's understand the importance of first step, that is identification of DNA with the desirable genes. So you know about traditional hybridization techniques. These techniques lead to inclusion and multiplication of undesirable genes and desirable genes. Like what is done in traditional hybridization technique? A male and female with desirable characteristics are chosen and breeding is done. Okay, the natural sexual hybridization, sexual reproduction takes place, you can say, right? So in the progeny of those, you can say there can be any plant or animal that in which breeding is done. Okay, so in the progeny there will be undesirable characters also with desirable characters, right? Because the male and female that we have taken for the breeding, in those male and female all the characteristics will not be desirable, right? So in progeny also those undesirable characteristics can also come, or we can say undesirable characteristics means those characteristics are coming due to genes. So we can say undesirable genes have also have also appeared in the progeny along with the desirable genes, right? So there is inclusion and multiplication of undesirable genes with desirable genes. Now in genetic engineering we can overcome this problem, right? In genetic engineering only desirable genes are introduced, because here we are identifying the DNA with desirable genes first, and only that part of DNA is introduced into a host, right? So this problem of traditional hybridization we can overcome by genetic engineering. Now second step. In second step, what is done? Introduction of the identified DNA into the host. So for this process, a vector DNA such as plasmid is used to deliver an alien piece of DNA into the host organism. As you know, malarial parasite, that is Plasmodium. For its introduction into human body, there is requirement of a vector, that is you can say the mosquito, okay, Anopheles mosquito. Likewise, for the introduction of an alien piece of DNA, because we are taking it from any other organism, that's why it is alien for that host, right? So for delivering that alien piece of DNA into the host organism, we require a vector, okay? And what is that vector here? That vector is like a plasmid, okay? Mostly these plasmids act like vector. What is plasmid? Extra chromosomal DNA that is present in bacteria, okay? And that plasmid present in bacteria acts like a very good vector for delivering DNA into host organism, right? So these plasmid vectors are used here. Like you can see here, this is a bacterial cell, and this is bacterial DNA, chromosomal DNA, and this is extra chromosomal DNA present in bacteria. And what are these? These are plasmids. So different number of plasmids can be present in different cells, right? So these are plasmids which are used as vector to transfer the DNA into host organism, right? Now, how it is done here? You can see here, like this is host E. coli, that is host cell, okay? And this is plasmid from any other E. coli, and the DNA, alien piece of DNA, has been introduced in this plasmid DNA first, right? That is introduced in this plasmid DNA first. We will discuss about this also, that how that alien piece of DNA is introduced in the plasmid, okay? We will discuss about this thing also. Now, for now, you just understand it, that this plasmid having the alien piece of DNA is called recombinant plasmid. Why it is called recombinant? Because here, along with this plasmid DNA, one alien piece of DNA is also present. That's why it is recombinant plasmid, right? Means it has been formed due to combination of alien piece of DNA with the plasmid DNA. That's why it is that's why it is recombinant, right? Now this recombinant plasmid is transferred to host cell. Host cell is E. coli here, okay? And this E. coli here is called transformed cell. Why it is called transformed cell? Because it is containing that recombinant plasmid. It has been transformed by this recombinant plasmid. We will discuss about this also. Third step is maintenance of introduced DNA in the host and transfer of the DNA to its progeny. So what happened if we introduce any piece of DNA directly in any other organism? Then this DNA will not be able to multiply in that organism, right? Because for the replication of DNA or for the multiplication of that piece of DNA in the host organism, there is requirement of origin of replication, right? And that alien piece of DNA is not having that origin of replication, that is ORI, okay? In short form we can say ORI, origin of replication. So that origin of replication is not present in that alien piece of DNA, which is needed for starting the replication of DNA, right? So it cannot multiply itself in the progeny cells of the organism. Hence, alien DNA is integrated into the recipient genome, right? So it is integrated only in the genome of the host organism, and that genome of the host organism is having ORI, means origin of replication, for the replication of its own DNA, right? That's why that alien piece of DNA will be able to multiply there because of that ORI of that genome of the host, right? So it multiplies there, that alien piece of DNA. Okay, so it will multiply there and inherits along with host DNA. Inherits along with host DNA means host DNA comes to the progeny, right? So with that DNA, that alien piece of DNA will also come to the progeny. So this is importance of maintenance of the introduced DNA in the host. This origin of replication is very important. Now, first recombinant DNA. We will study about it, that how it was discovered. The process of joining and insertion of a foreign piece of DNA into a host organism to produce new genetic combination is called recombinant DNA technology. Okay, so what is done here? Joining and inserting a foreign piece of DNA, that alien DNA we are taking from the desirable DNA that we are taking from any other organism, right? That is introduced into the host organism to produce new genetic combination, and this complete process is called recombinant DNA technology. Because here we are making recombinant DNA by the recombination, okay, where the host DNA is combining with the alien DNA. So that is a type of recombination of the genetic material or of the DNA, you can say, right? So that this technology is called recombinant DNA technology. First recombinant DNA is also called rDNA. Okay, so first recombinant DNA was produced by Stanley Cohen and Herbert Boyer in 1972. They isolated an antibiotic resistance gene, that is a piece of DNA. Okay, that the piece of DNA that provide the resistant power against the antibiotics. Against the antibiotics, if you are talking, so we can say to the bacteria. Okay, because bacteria's antibiotic kill bacterias. So antibiotic resistant power to the bacterias. Okay, so they isolated a piece of DNA having resistance power to the antibiotics, right, from a plasmid of Salmonella typhimurium. Salmonella typhimurium is a bacteria, you can see here. Okay, and in this bacteria plasmid is present, and this plasmid is having antibiotic resistance power, and for that antibiotic resistance power, a particular gene present in plasmid of this bacteria is responsible, right? So Stanley Cohen and Herbert Boyer, they isolated this gene from this bacteria, from the plasmid of this bacteria, you can see, and it was linked with a plasmid vector, means this gene having antibiotic resistance power, it was linked with plasmid vector, means plasmid from any other bacteria. Okay, so it was linked with that plasmid was taken as a vector. Okay, and then it was transferred into E. coli, Escherichia coli, right? So what happened? That E. coli also got antibiotic resistant power due to that gene from Salmonella typhimurium. Okay, so as a result, the gene was expressed and multiplied in E. coli. So obviously with the plasmid, that gene is coming for the antibiotic resistance power. So this gene multiplied in the E. coli also, and also expressed. Expressed means it provide resistant power to the E. coli also. So it was about the discovery of first recombinant DNA, you can see. We need to discuss the tools that those are required for this recombinant DNA technology. So these are the tools. First, restriction enzymes, which are also called molecular scissors, then cloning vectors, and then competent host. So we'll discuss about these restriction enzymes. These are also called molecular scissors. That's molecular scissors because these are cutting the DNA. Like this strand, DNA strand you can see here, and this is like scissor. So this restriction enzymes work like this scissor for cutting the DNA. Then cloning vectors. Cloning vectors obviously which will hold that alien piece of DNA and will carry that alien piece of DNA, or that will deliver that alien piece of DNA into the host. Okay, and then competent host. Competent host will be like any bacterial cell that will be able to take up that recombinant plasmid. Recombinant plasmid means plasmid having alien piece of DNA. Okay, so the cell that is capable to take up that recombinant plasmid and will be able to replicate that and maintain that alien piece of DNA, you can say. So these three are required for recombinant DNA technology. Now we will discuss about all these three in detail. So let's start with restriction enzymes. Restriction enzymes. These are also called molecular scissors, that I have already told you, because the molecular, you can say biomolecule, DNA is a biomolecule, okay, and these are cutting a biomolecule, that's why these are called molecular scissors. Then these are the enzymes which cut DNA at specific sites into fragments. Okay, these cut DNA at specific sites and fragments of DNA will be formed due to that cutting. They belong to a class of enzymes called nucleases. Okay, the name of class of enzyme is nucleases. So you can see here like one restriction enzyme is shown here, and this is double stranded DNA, and this enzyme is cutting this DNA at specific sites, and these fragments of DNA are formed here. Now types of restriction enzymes. So there are two types of restriction enzymes, exonucleases and endonucleases. Exonucleases, exo word you can understand here, means on the outer side. So they remove the nucleotides from the ends of DNA. From the ends of DNA, these are cutting the DNA. You can say these are cutting of DNA means removal of nucleotides from the polynucleotide chain. Okay, so exonucleases are doing that. Then endonucleases, endo means from the inner side, right? So these endonucleases cut at specific positions within DNA. Within DNA, they recognize a specific sequence and cut the DNA at that sequence. So they bind to the specific recognition sequence of DNA first and cut the two strands at specific points. As you can see here in this diagram, this is a complete DNA. Okay, double-stranded DNA is present here, and you can see the sequence like GAA, TTC. So enzyme, this endonuclease enzyme will recognize this specific sequence present here and will bind to that sequence first and will cut the DNA at that sequence only. Okay, that's why these are endonucleases, and these are restriction endonucleases because these are restricted to those sites only. Now about the discovery of first restriction enzyme, how it was discovered. So in 1963, two enzymes responsible for restricting growth of bacteriophage. Bacteriophage, that is virus. Okay, virus affecting the bacteria. So restricting the growth of bacteriophage in E. coli were isolated, and these two enzymes were, one enzyme added methyl group to DNA. DNA that is coming from the bacteriophage. So one enzyme was doing the work of adding methyl group to that DNA, and the other was cutting the DNA by recognizing that methyl added DNA. Okay, so the other enzyme, that was called restriction endonuclease, was working to cut the DNA of the bacteriophage to restrict the growth of that bacteriophage in E. coli. So it was about the discovery of first restriction enzyme. Okay, and more than 900 restriction enzymes have been isolated now from over 230 strains of bacteria. So from where we got the restriction enzyme? From bacteria, from prokaryotic cells, you can say. These are present in prokaryotic cells as self-defense mechanism, you can say, for restricting the growth of bacteriophages. And we can isolate those enzymes, those restriction enzymes from the bacteria for some other purpose. Now it is about the isolation of first endonuclease, first restriction endonuclease. That was about the how we discovered that. But the first restriction endonuclease that was isolated from any prokaryotic cell was HindIII. Okay, this HindIII enzyme was isolated first. And this enzyme cuts DNA by recognizing a specific sequence of 6 base pairs. This is called the recognition sequence for HindIII. Okay, there are different recognition sequences for different enzymes. So there is a specific recognition sequence for HindIII also, and this is the recognition sequence for HindIII, that is GT PYPU. That is, any pyrimidine can be here or any purine can be here, along with GT, and with AC any purine can be here. Okay, so this is the recognition sequence for the enzyme HindIII. These questions are based on today's topics only. You need to do these questions as homework. NCERT question number 4, 5 and 12.